Welcome, school board. We have simultaneously scheduled our hearings. We have the budget hearing and school board hearing. The budget hearing is starting technically at 6 o'clock, but we're going to take a recess and yield to the school so they can take care of the business and get home before the roads get too bad. And then as soon as they're done, we will resume and take over with the budget hearing. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll try to be very quick through this so you can get to your budget hearing as well. We're here really tonight to discuss the two petition warrant articles that were put on the warrant and to discuss at the deliberative session. But before we get into that, I just want to explain very, very briefly the other warrant articles that are on the warrant that you can be voting on in March. We have 3 collective bargaining agreements, one for the support staff, one for the teachers, and one for the administrators. The support staff and the administrators are both 3-year contracts. The teachers is a 4-year contract. And part of the process is that on each one of them, we're changing their health care plan to a consumer-driven plan, and they're going to be paying a portion of their premium each year going forward. The support staff and the administrators are paying 2% the first year, 2.5% the second year, and 3% the third year. The teachers opted for a different program, and they're paying 3% the first year, 5% the second year, 7% the third year, and 10% the fourth year. Overall, it's going to save the district money in the long term, so we thought it was a very good approach to take. Each one of the contracts are a little bit different. It was a balancing act between them paying a portion of their premium and us giving them enough of an increase where nobody went backwards in their take-home pay. So it was a balancing act, but we got through the three contracts to do that. The other two warrant articles of note are the $60,000 that we've asked to put away for the athletic fields over the last 6 years. This is going to be the 7th year, I believe, that we're putting $60,000 away. It's not new tax money being raised. It's money that, if there's money left over at the end of the prior school year, we've asked to take $60,000 to put that away into the reserve account for the athletic fields. The field has a lifespan of about 12 years with a replacement cost of about $700,000 to $750,000. If we put this money, $60,000 away for the 12 years of lifespan, we'll have that plus the interest to pay for the athletic field replacement without having to ask the taxpayers for it up front. And the other major article warrant besides the budget is the $200,000 that we ask each year for the maintenance warrant article. And those are major maintenance issues that have been identified. Each year we look at the entire school properties and come up with a list of priorities. This year there's probably $400,000 to $500,000 worth of need. We look at what we can prioritize and do within that $200,000, and then reprioritize the following year if the vote is approved another chunk of money. So those are the two big things. We're not going to go through the budget presentation because that does take quite a while, but we do have the handouts here that I'd like everybody to take. These are the handouts that were at the deliberative session last week. It explains all the budget changes, all the different categories. If there's any questions at all on any of it, feel free to call us. Our numbers are published, our emails are published. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. So that's really where we are today. But we're here tonight to discuss the two petition warrant articles that were presented. Both of the petition warrant articles were amended at the deliberative session. And Article, let's see, I think we should start in order, I think. Article 11. Article 11 is, I'll read it off here. Article 11 is to see if the Governor Wentworth Regional School District will vote to create a budget committee wherein said committee would serve in an advisory-only capacity. This is the amended version that you'll be voting on in March. As an advisory-only capacity to the Wentworth Regional School District School Board and have 5 members plus 1 member from the school board. The school board will appoint the initial members within 30 days of the election, including the member from the school board. And the advisory committee member's term will expire at the next annual meeting, at which point the school board may reappoint. And the school board does not recommend this article. Okay, I'd also like to take the opportunity to discuss the Budget Committee warrant article. Again, going through what we just did. The school board does not recommend this article. This is not the first time the warrant article has been included as a petition article of this nature, and each time it has been soundly defeated. The most recent petition warrant article was in 2010, which was resoundingly defeated, 2,293 votes to 1,691. The decision has been made. The school board is elected by the people to operate the schools. Taxpayers already have chosen their representatives and put them in place. Because of their involvement with the programs, they are in the best position to make the judgments about what reasonable needs are. A budget committee is just another layer of government. It's not in position to make judgments about the legal needs and appropriate programs for children. They do not have enough involvement to make informed decisions. The school board holds several meetings where the budget is discussed and questions and input are welcome. Meetings where budget is specifically discussed start in the fall with 3 finance committee meetings, during which administration meets with the finance committee to discuss their recommendations, followed by the preliminary budget hearing, the budget adoption hearing, and the deliberative session. All school board meetings, including these meetings, are open to the public. Thus, any citizen can express their opinion in the budget development process. A budget committee provides a layer between the school board and the construction of the budget, giving individual community members less of a voice. The GWRSD is an SB2 district where everyone has a vote on the budget, plus an open meeting to make changes in it prior to the actual vote. A budget committee can have the impact of lessening the value of the individual vote by taking away the opportunity to vote on certain items removed or altered by a budget committee. In other words, every citizen has a voice through their vote, and the voice need not be filtered by another layer of government bureaucracy. Budget committees have not provided any significant level of cost control. A number of towns in the Wentworth Regional District have budget committees. Yet, a look at the 2018 data from the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration shows that the towns in Wentworth allocate a higher percentage of the tax rate to town government rather than schools. I'm not going to go any further, but the school district, the school board urges a no vote on Article 11 for the Budget Committee. We don't feel it's appropriate or it's needed as an additional layer of oversight. We did do some, I asked Kathy Glennis today, and I actually didn't bring my figures, but it doesn't really matter. That's the paper. I asked Kathy to give me an idea of what our budget increases have been basically since 2011 to the present. And I asked for 2011 specifically because that was the first year that the state took away 35% funding for the retirement plan. And our budget increase that year was 5.57%. The following year, it was 1.14%. The year after that, it was 1.43. The following year, 0.97. Year after that, 2.28. 2016-17, 1.85. 2017-18, 2.29. Last year was 3.81, and the proposed budget is 3.32. I also asked if, by some miracle, the state legislature said, we will pay the $784,000 that they're reneging on this year, that they're asking the local taxpayers to pay for the retirement plan. if that was taken off the increase that we're looking for this year, our increased budget, instead of being 3.32, would be 1.83. So we put together a very fiscally responsible budget. The state of New Hampshire continues to take money out of your local pockets to fund state government rather than public education. So that's really a key. There was also a question about the reserve, the undesignated reserve balance at the end of each year. And why not keep some of that maybe to avoid spikes in the taxes? I know Diane asked that question last night. The board has always voted to give the money, any money left over at the end of any fiscal year back to the taxpayers as a reduction in taxes for the following year. We've always done that. We've never kept any kind of a reserve. The state does allow us to keep, it's 2.5% of our budget in a reserve, but we felt it's more important to give it back to the taxpayers because they're the ones that have approved the budget. So I asked Kathy to just give us an idea of what we've returned to the taxpayers over the years. And starting in 2010, it was $1,261,000. The following year, $1,082,000. The year after, $1,931,000. Following year, $2,053,000. The year after that, $2,803,000. That was the year, I think, that that was 2014-15. Was that the year that the government gave us all that money? Or was it earlier? But again, if we looked at what our budget was, roughly $50 million, we could have kept $1.5 million to $1.2 million of that money. We didn't think that was prudent. We thought the taxpayers should get the money back. So we've always done that. Last year, we tried to create a budget that was that we could afford to do last year. We only had in 2017-18 about $737,000 left. That again is being used to reduce this year's taxes. And the projected for this year, even though the budget seems high, is only $560,000. So we're trying to get our budgets as tight as possible without having a lot of money left over. But that's the history that I wanted to let you know has been happening over the time. So that's what we've done from a budget standpoint, and I think we've done a pretty reasonable job in trying to create good and appropriate budgets for the district. The other warrant article that was given by petition was to create a 2% tax cap across the district. And again, this was amended at the deliberative session, and this is what you'll be voting on in March. To see if the Wentworth Regional School District will vote per RSA 32:B, paragraph B, to adopt a tax cap whereby the governing body or budget committee shall not submit a recommended budget that increases the amount to be raised by local taxes based upon the prior year's fiscal year's actual amount of local taxes raised by more than 25%. It was raised from 2% to 25% at the deliberative session. The school board urges you to vote against that warrant article. We don't need that kind of a tax cap. Again, looking at the history, we've been able to keep our budgets around that 2% level since 2010, a little bit higher, a couple of years, a little bit lower. But I think we've done an excellent job in trying to maintain some fiscal responsibility. I'm not going to go into a whole lot more detail on it. I urge you to vote no on both the petition warrant articles and yes on all of the school board articles. There are 3 other articles that are included, but they're housekeeping articles should any of the collective bargaining agreements fail. The next article gives us the ability to reopen negotiations and come back to the taxpayers with a revised collective bargaining agreement. Hopefully we don't have to get there, but they'll be null and void if the collective bargaining agreements are supported through the process. So at that point,
questions?
Yes, I wanted to be fast. So any questions about any of this? I know it was fast, but I know it's snowing out and nobody wants to hang around too long. But we are here to answer questions. Again, I want you to take copies of the handout from the deliberative session. We'll leave several here. And call us, email us if you have any questions at all. That's what we're here for. Yes, Diane.
So I will make this brief. These folks heard me speak last night, and you've heard me speak about this before as well, so I will be brief. The purpose of the hearing actually, the hearing was required by the statutes. I think it was a bad idea myself, and I expressed that to you when I turned in the petition warrant articles, to have, I think there should have been one hearing for the entire district instead of in all of the communities. But nonetheless, regarding the tax cap, which is really the subject, in my mind, of the hearing, the reason for the tax cap, and it wasn't my idea, but I support it, was, and I'll hand these out, the idea was that the, over a 10-year period, the rate of growth of the local tax burden exceeded the rate of growth of the consumer price index. So I charted this out to see a variability from year to year of what the school district's local tax burden was compared to what was hovered right around 2% for the consumer price index. The red line is Governor Wentworth School District as a percent of change from the, from the previous year. This speaks somewhat also to the comments that Mr. Woodman made regarding my request last night to consider having the undesignated fund balance carry over from carry it over from year to year to modify the swings that pretty much mirror these graphs, this graph in terms of the tax burden to the communities, so that there aren't huge spikes in variability. A little more predictability would be helpful, as I think we try here in Brookfield, is to have a very slow progression of the increase in the tax rate. And that doesn't seem to be a mindset for the school district. The other point that I would like to make about this, and some of you in the room signed the petition, some of you didn't, and that's fine. But what I failed to articulate previously is that if a tax cap were put into place, the RSA 32:5-B, number 3, says the legislative body may override the cap by the usual procedures applicable to annual meetings and deliberative sessions of the legislative body. The provisions of this section shall not limit the legislative body's authority to increase or decrease the amount of any appropriation or the total amount of all appropriations. So at the deliberative session, whether or not the budget committee or the school board had that designated cap, the voters at the deliberative session could change all the line items in the budget and increase it way beyond whatever that percentage is. That said, I know we have a lot of other stuff to cover tonight. I'll have these graphs available for later, and I would echo the chairman's remarks regarding the lack of support for either one of these petition warrant articles. Now that they've been changed, they become meaningless, and I think they would be a waste of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And the last thing I want to say, and I know a lot of you have probably heard this before, but when I talked about the state reneging on their responsibility for the retirement fund, up until 2010, the state paid 35% of the cost of the retirement fund for the teachers. In 2010, they reduced it from 35% to 25%. In 2011, they reduced it from 25% to 0. And over the since 2010 to this year's budget, the state has moved $5.5 million, almost $5.5 million of responsibility to the local taxpayers in your tax bill. That's your state legislature has done that. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think they had the right to do that. It was a promise when the retirement system was put in that they would fund part of that. And they in Concord decided that they would no longer fund it. So that they've taken that money and put it in the general fund apparently and spent it elsewhere. And they've asked you to pay the bill. So that's really all I have to say. If there's any more questions, I'd be more. Yes, sir.
Yes, hi, Frank Fisher, Brookfield. Unfortunately, I had a scheduling conflict, so I was not able to attend the deliberative session I planned to. But I think these two warrant articles are symptomatic of a bigger elephant in the room, and I'm just curious if the school board in the coming year plans to talk about, or have you talked about, the disparagement and equalization rate across the towns in the district. This is not unique to this school district. There are other school districts in the state that have similar issues. I understand it's bubbling up to the top again. Talk of another lawsuit like the Claremont lawsuit, which doesn't do anybody good, doesn't do staff any good, doesn't do teachers. In the end, it does, lawyers make money, and hopefully there are no lawyers there. So the question is has the school board discussed at all revisiting the contract between the towns because obviously if we were at 100% equalization instead of the 25-75, then the equalized costs of the school district would be spread equally across every taxpayer in the entire district.
Well, the problem with that is 100% equalized valuation. We looked at the numbers. Right now, let me tell you the numbers. No.
You got it, go back. Yeah, go back one, you got, yeah.
Did I?
Put this right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, right now, based on the current formula, okay, the town of Tuftonboro is paid per student cost now. That's
right. I'm aware that that Brookfield is not the lowest, but
right.
close to the
So
bottom.
the town of Tuftonboro right now pays $25,200 per student.
Right.
Wolfboro is $22,596. Brookfield is $16,516. New Durham is $16,916. Ossipee is $14,747. And Effingham is $12,914. If by going to 100% equalized valuation, we did those numbers, Tuftonboro would go from $25,200 to a little over $35,000. And I can tell you, as a Tuftonboro resident, the first thing we would do would be to try to withdraw from the district. If you did something like that, it would destroy the district.
But on the other end, because of the equalization, and I know it's a tough problem. I'm not diminishing. It's just as simple as changing a formula number. It's a bigger discussion, and I think it's going to wind up being a statewide discussion at some point in time. But every percentage rate increase in the school budget, I believe this to be true, and hopefully I'm willing to be re-educated, disproportionately affects the people in the taxpayers in the lower equalization town. In other words, Tuftonboro, yes, it would go to 35,000 students, but it's spread over an incredibly larger tax base. So the actual increase in rate in taxes would be an increase, there is no doubt about it, but it wouldn't be as proportionate as every time the school budget goes up a point, it impacts Brookfield and the other New Durham and the other lower equalization rate towns disproportionately. And it's the disproportionate part of that I think is the discussion.
But part of the formula, and this is where it gets a little confusing as well, part of the formula is the average daily membership per town. And that also creates some spikes here and there. As you get a few more students in, your tax rate goes up because you've got more kids to educate.
And that creates the wonderful situation we have in all of New Hampshire about, we don't want people with kids to move into our town,
Well,
so.
yeah,
And that's not a very
that is
welcome
not a
thing
good
either.
thing, that is not a good thing.
So again, and that,
I certainly hear you, and it's certainly open for discussion. The formula that has been in place, obviously has been in place since 1964.
yeah.
The first year the district was put together. It's worked reasonably well over the years. But, you know, we can certainly look at all opportunities, and we will.
All right, good, thank you.
Anyone else?
Now that I'm in legislative mode, I did put a legislative request into Legislative Services to find the historical background, since I've only been in the state for 8 years. I don't know what the history is for the retirement system.
Okay.
It makes sense to me that if there was an agreement somewhere, I don't know how you could just break it and bring it. Now, last session, the budget on the state level was approximately 11% higher than it was previous. So there was a huge push and crunch to get that budget under control. It was so bad that for the first time since 1960, that budget was forced out of the House and had to go to the Senate to be pushed through the system. So the budget is serious. So when you say over and over again that the state is reneging on its responsibilities, that may be so for the retirement, but adequacy grants and stuff like that, I remember that specifically. The reason why that was, why that's slowly going down is A, there's not enough money to give the adequacy grants, plus it was the legislature's idea that should be better controlled at the state, at the town levels. So cost shifting doesn't always mean that it's a bad thing, it just means you might have more control over at the local level. Now, what happens is, so the state doesn't have enough money to pay. You've been saying over and over again that the state's not stepping up, they should pay their fair share that they agreed to, but the issue is, if that should happen, someone is gonna have to appropriate that money somewhere. It just doesn't get printed. Let me finish. You can't print it. So that money's gotta come from somewhere. Where does it come from? You're gonna get higher registration fees.
Yeah.
Fee on top of fee on top of fee to make up that amount. You add on the retirement system, and the New Hampshire retirement system is in better shape than other states, but it's still in a seriously bad financial position. So it isn't that we can just find this money just from thin air and send it to you. This money has to be appropriated somehow. So someone's gonna pay for it anyway if it happens.
And I don't mind that, if somebody else has to pay for it, because at one point in 2010, when they started reducing it, in 2011 when they eliminated it, they took that money and they appropriated it somewhere else. That money is still there in the state fund, in the state bank.
You're talking about retirement.
The retirement money is still there. It's just been reallocated to some other place. So get it back from wherever you reallocated it, not you, but whoever reallocated it, all right? Bring it back into the retirement system, and if you have to raise fees or something to pay for roads or something else, fine. Is 100% of the gas tax increase the last time going to the roads? No.
It went to 6 different, I think it was 5 or 6 different agencies.
That's not what we were told.
I know.
Well, no, lottery's the same
Lottery is
thing.
another prime example. Every penny for the lottery is gonna go to education. Is that happening? It's not happening. So, I understand what you're saying, but the money is still there. The legislature, the federal, the state government still has the money to fund the retirement system. They're just using it elsewhere.
This is why I put the request in, because I want a factual document in writing stating what actually happened historically. Because I think because you said it over and over again in every single meeting the same way.
And
You
I'm
said-
gonna continue to say it.
But you said the reason why, you're basically saying the reason why the school taxes are high are primarily because of the adequacy grant going away and the retirement system not getting paid into. But that is not the whole story. There is a huge concern in the property poor towns, and I hate using that term, but the property poor towns. There are people losing their homes because they can't afford these taxes.
So,
And it
yeah.
appears to people on the outside of this that there is not that much of a concern. So people got together and put in petition warrant article, got a pretty good amount of signatures for the tax cap. And as you heard, the tax cap could easily be overridden by, it's just an extra step that this taxpayer could have some control, not saying anything about your authority. The budget committee would have been a fantastic idea because A, you're getting more people involved in the process. And if, for instance, 1 year, 2 years passes with the elected budget committee and it doesn't work out, you put a warrant article in and you disband it.
But those people already have the ability to come and make input into the budget process anyway, and they don't show up.
And listen, I agree. I've been filming meetings for a long
Right.
time and getting people into a
Yeah.
meeting is very difficult, so I
But
understand that.
The other thing is, when you talk about property poor towns and all of that, and part of the budget presentation too, Ospey lost $34,000 last year in the stabilization grant. Right, there's a property poor town that took another hit for $34,000. How do you explain that to them? It's not our fault. It's not, their taxes went up because of the school budget, but it also went up because the state took another $34,000 out of their pocket. So we didn't hit it in Tuftonboro because we're not eligible for that. But Ossipee, Effingham, any town that was getting stabilization money got taken away from them. We're sitting here saying, the budget's too high, the tax rate keeps going up and all of that. It's only part of it is only going up, like this year, 3.32%. If we had the $870,000 in the retirement fund this year, our budget increase would only be 1.83%. Pretty fiscally responsible when you're talking about a $54 million budget.
But you can't forget.
So, but I'm just saying, there's a lot more factors than saying your budget keeps going up and your taxes keep rising. Because it's not just the people at this table that are making those decisions. It's all the 400 people sitting in the legislature down in Concord that are making decisions that affect every single person in this room.
And I would agree with Jack. I mean, and I hear you, Ed, and I'm in New Durham, and I feel it too, but where's the risk of providing a 21st century education for our kids too? People move in and out, but people want to go and live in a place where they feel that their kids are getting a good education. I think we all sit around and try to say, what can we do? We need to pay our teachers appropriately to stay. We have some of the longest serving tenures for teachers, so there's that fine balance. And with 78% of our budget is people, humans, that want a paycheck and do and educate and coach and everything. There's that balance. So you're dealing with people. It's not just widgets. So I understand what people say. And like Jack said, people have an opportunity. And I think the board would welcome if people have thoughts, ideas, different things. I think we're all open-minded to suggestions because none of us want to say, we don't care. That is not true, at all.
And you know as well as I do, Ed, we opened the budget process and invited all of the selectmen, public, posted in every single town that were having the budget meetings so they could hear the process and go through the process. And who showed up? These two gentlemen right here from Brookfield. And they showed up at every meeting, all three meetings. And I think at the end of the meeting, they at least had some basic understanding of what the budget process is. But two people out of, what do you have, 10,000 voters in this district?
I did ask a lot of people why they don't show. And there were two things. One person said, they're just going to do whatever they want anyway. You get that all the time. That I can't make any change. It's been so long. And it's been going on for so long, I don't think anything's going to change, so they stay home. But the one concerning thing was people were afraid to come to a meeting like that, the deliberative session, et cetera, because they're afraid if they say something, if they have a child in the school or they have a friend who's a teacher or some employee, there's going to be repercussions from it.
I know you mentioned that the other night, and those people don't understand what kind of a school district they're in. They absolutely do not understand the atmosphere in the buildings. They don't understand the people that live in their own communities. They don't understand that people can have different sort of opinions. but that doesn't make them wrong.
Right.
And you can
Yeah.
discuss, you can, but if people are afraid to show up, that's their problem, not ours.
Well, I just mentioned that.
And I understand that, and there's some people I understand can take that position, but if you're really concerned, get involved. And, I mean, that's the whole point. Get involved if you're concerned.
My last comment would be related to what you said about paying or getting a good education, adequate education. There is a movement within the state that has been in detail questioning the test scores and the competency rates. And some people are saying we should be focusing only on the funding. You have Walensky running around saying we have to find money, fund the school. But then there's another group of people that are saying, wait a minute, we're looking at the wrong target here, because we really have to delve into why the test scores are the way they are.
And part of that, I think, and you guys can back me up, but part of that is you have to have some consistency. So you can't be changing the tests every few years and
There's no
expect.
benchmarks.
You have no, you
Yeah.
lose all your benchmarks. You can't keep changing the system to accommodate somebody else's interest.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. You get a certain test that you're taking, you do that for 3 or 4 years, you start having some historical information, all of a sudden, oh, next year we're doing a different test. Now you start all over again, and you're going up and down, up and down, up and down. There's no, because the tests aren't the same.
Yeah, but you're teaching Common Core, right? You're using that curriculum still, correct? I'm just saying, are you?
Yeah.
Because that was the
Yeah.
concern, that was one of the concerns, that the curriculum being used, and the corporations that you're buying your programs from, you know, I'm not,
Yeah.
this is less of my opinion than I'm
Yeah.
just informing you that that's what people are
Okay,
saying. that they're-
because it's unfortunate, because it's a misinformed perception.
that you're not teaching Common Core.
No, it's
No.
misinformed that we're
About
buying
the
programs
course.
from
Yeah.
companies, because
Yeah.
that's not the way the teachers put together their content and their curriculum. And the other issue with the test results is, as you know, because you were here when I talked about going to China, you can get good test results and good test scores if you focus on memorization. Memorization doesn't equal a good education. And I think other countries know that. So
Yeah. And
we
yeah.
really need to shift and have that balance, rather than focusing on test scores, so that we can have good memorizers, but not good higher order thinkers, so.
Yeah, and and for me personally, probably get in trouble, but I don't care what the test scores are. To me, that doesn't tell me my daughter's getting a good education. It tells me, like, she can memorize something, she can work in an hour. What I care about is the critical thinking, the partnership, the foundation, and I can tell you, be an involved parent. If you have concerns about what your child is doing in school, then be an active parent and know what. Teachers are very transparent in curriculum. You can go through what your kids know. You know, to me, test scores are irrelevant. It's what we're churning out our kids that are going into post-secondary schools. I mean, that shows me the value of the education of the Governor Wentworth, is what our kids are able to go to 4 years, military, post-secondary, different areas. Test scores to me are irrelevant.
And I think some of the best things we do are at the technical center.
Yeah.
Because we are able to have kids come into the center and actually learn a trade and go out into the community, and they can stay in the community and they can get good paying jobs. So it's not just about the test scores.
Yeah, I mean, that's, just my
We have
personal.
13 different programs at the Voc Center, depending on their area of interest. One of the things I look at as kind of a report card is how are our graduates doing? And we got 70+% of our students going on to higher levels of education, and they seem to be very successful. We don't hear of problems, so their higher level thinking apparently is working because we're instilling that in them while they're in the school system. It's like some of these graphs we look at, you have to read it 5 different ways to figure out what it really says. And our kids, according to the rest of the country, are doing exceptionally well.
I mean, not to say that there's not opportunities, I don't think one of us would ever sit here and say that we got it down pat, you know, in the box. No, I think we're humans, and I think we know there's opportunities, and I think we're willing to hear people's suggestions to different opportunities of ways of doing things, you know, and I would say that we are very transparent, and, you know, call me, email me, I think anyone else would say that, you know, I don't think we have it 100% down, no, that would be crazy to even say that.
So-
There's always opportunities.
So speaking, just touching a little bit on the budget, one of the major line items of the budget that's higher this year is new and replacement equipment. Most of that equipment is technology-based equipment. We're using equipment that we purchased from the federal government funds when the recession hit, and the federal government gave us all these grants. We bought all this computer equipment, whiteboards and all of that. That was 10 years ago. We're using the same equipment. We need to replace some of that and keep our kids on the technology track, because that's where the future is. And anybody that's in an office building or doing anything today, everything is technology. Even in a restaurant, you don't even give them your credit card anymore. They bring a little swipe. You just swipe it and sign on the pad, and you're done. So you know, times have changed. We're trying to teach our kids to be active, good citizens in a different type of community that they're moving into. The new world is different than we grew up in, and we have to prepare our children to be part of that process and be good citizens. Yes.
My name is Mary Lou McLean, and I'm the treasurer for the town of Brookfield. So, if I heard you correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you are setting up a semi-budget committee based on members that you will choose.
That's only if it passes
Yes.
in March.
So let's say it passes.
Yes.
What criteria is important to you to choose those people?
Well, we'd like those people to come forward and tell us why they're interested in being on a budget committee. One of my objections to this type of process is that we don't necessarily want people with an agenda to just cut. That happened several years ago, quite a few years ago now, when Wolfboro had a tax cap committee, or whatever they call themselves, citizens tax group. They wanted to cut the budget and slash it and all that. So our superintendent at the time, Jack Robertson, invited them into the office. They were all hell-bent on cutting. And that was their mindset. They came into the SAU office and spent about 4 days there, looking through everything they could look at. And at the end of 4 days, they went upstairs, they shook Jack's hand, says, I guess you guys are doing an okay job. So for people to get involved, we're more than willing to talk to anybody or have them come to our meetings and express opinions, look at the budget process, ask questions. But if somebody wants to be on a budget committee strictly to cut the budget, it's not going to work. So we're looking for people with open minds that are willing to learn the process and understand what it takes. Part of creating a school budget is we have to rely on the federal government and the federal laws that we have to abide by. We have money for special education that we have to have in the budget. If you look at one of the line items on the I think it's the green sheet here, for special education, we're asking for $1.2 million, or maybe it's more than that. We only spent 800 and some odd thousand last year. Well, it wouldn't be prudent for us to cut that budget down to 800,000 when we may have a special education child moving to the district that all of a sudden costs us 200,000 for an out-of-district placement. So it's a balancing act between what we have ability to do, what is mandated by federal law and state law, and the other flexibility. We have the ability within that budget, the center section of that budget, of the $54 million proposed budget, we have flexibility on about 5.4% of that. Now, most of that is books, is the new equipment that we're looking to buy to keep our people up to snuff on technology. And sports programs, we can certainly cut sports programs out. But we have very little flexibility because of the mandates that are out there. We have to have water and sewer, we have to plow the driveways, we have to put electricity into the buildings, all those things that are part of the budget. And where 78% of the budget is people, 6.9% of the budget is our debt service to pay off the Kingswood complex. It doesn't leave a whole lot in the middle once you take all those requirements out that we have flexibility on. But if people come to our meetings and we can show them on, a hard copy, and they can understand, and if they have ideas for us to work with, we're more than happy to talk to them. But we don't get people to show up, unfortunately.
I understand.
Anyone else? I appreciate it. I know you have your meeting to get to. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you guys for coming down.